In the school reunion episode, Sarah Jane said that pain and loss defines us just as much as happiness or love. Pain and loss are both common themes in Doctor Who. I'm going to discuss multiple examples of ambiguous loss. Ambiguous loss occurs when the loss does not have a clear interpretation or an end. This term was created by Dr. Pauline Boss in the 1970s. While most of us have experienced some sort of ambiguous loss, it's not talked about nearly as much as something like death. There are two different types of ambiguous loss: physical absence with psychological presence and psychological absence with physical presence. I'm first going to share examples of physical absence with psychological presence. Boss stated that how someone deals with the loss can be determined by their personality, their beliefs, or core values. In the Revolution of the Daleks episode, Yaz, Graham, and Ryan had been separated from the Doctor for 10 months. They had no idea of knowing if the Doctor had survived or if she would ever return. Yaz dealt with this loss very differently than Graham and Ryan. When we first find her in the episode, she's still in the TARDIS that brought them home, desperately trying to find a way to bring the Doctor back. Boss stated that ambiguous loss can be the most stressful type of loss because of the absence of a body or proof that your loved one is gone. While Graham and Ryan missed the Doctor, they had both decided that most likely the Doctor would never return. We know that they both had recently dealt with the loss of their grandmother and wife, Grace. So they both recently had to learn how to live without someone that they loved deeply. So in the episode, Graham tells Yaz that the Doctor would want them to look after the Earth. So in this example, we're able to see how Graham and Ryan were able to find purpose in the Doctor's absence. So now I'm going to talk about psychological absence with physical presence. So in the 12th Doctor adventure, Deep Breath, the Doctor is going through a state of confusion when he lands in 1890s London. He had just regenerated from this quirky young being to someone who appeared to be completely different. The Doctor couldn't figure out how to fly the TARDIS, and he couldn't recognize his companion Clara. Clara was very devastated with this new Doctor. So the first part of this episode can resemble what family members go through when their loved one has dementia. As the episode goes on, the Doctor is coming more so into his new self, but Clara still desperately wants her old friend to come back. So I know there are a lot of fans who felt that Claire's reaction didn't make any sense because she already knew about regeneration and had even met multiple incarnations of the Doctor. I would say that her reaction is actually quite common. The ambiguity of not knowing what a future with this new Doctor would look like caused Claire to be in this state of denial. So a non-Whovian example would be, you can understand what dementia is, but you can still have a hard time accepting that your loved one can no longer do certain things that you used to do. So that's why Clara had a hard time accepting this. Dr. Boss gave us 6 guidelines for resilience with dealing with the loss. And she emphasized that, like time, these guidelines are non-linear. So finding meaning means making sense of the loss. So like Graham and Ryan, Sarah Jane and other former companions were able to find meaning by looking after the Earth. Adjusting mastery is when you have to handle challenges or just have to make those tough decisions. So I use Donna's mother and grandfather as an example. We know that in the 3rd season that Donna had to lose all of her memories of the Doctor, and any mention of space and aliens could have potentially killed her. So obviously here, her family had to make difficult decisions. So it's important to note with adjusting mastery that things such as poverty, discrimination, or natural disasters can make adjusting mastery difficult. I'm also using Donna's grandfather will for reconstruct her identity. So we know before Donna lost her memory, she used to sit outside with her grandfather and they would look at the stars and talk about life in space. But we know in the more recent specials that before her memories were returned, spoiler alert, that her grandfather had to find different ways of interacting with her, because she mentioned, like, my grandfather used to do this, but now he doesn't anymore. When you are able to accept having mixed feelings, you're normalizing ambivalence. So with the doctor, we know that the doctor had recently learned that they had been abandoned and adopted as a small child, and they also had a large chunk of their memory taken away from them, which can be a hard thing to understand and accept. But in also a more recent episode, The Church on Ruby Road, the doctor's new friend Ruby was also a foundling, but yet she was still surrounded with love from her adopted family. So even with all the doctor's sad goodbyes, we can see how love always finds a way of finding the doctor again. Revising attachment, I'm going to use a quote from the 13th Doctor in the Woman Who Fell to Earth episode, when she was asked how she dealt with no longer having her family members near her. And she said that she takes them with her, what they would have thought, said, and done, and makes it a part of who she is. With the last guideline, Discover a New Hope, I'm picturing that last scene in the Power of the Doctor episode when former companions were sitting around just talking about their experiences. And we know that Yaz had left the doctor in that episode for what could be the last time. And it's my hope that as she sat there listening to those stories, that those new friends were helping her discover or envision what a new life without the doctor can look like. So it's my hope that you now have a better understanding of ambiguous loss, so that if you or someone else is going through something like that, you may have an idea of what you can do to help. To close this, I will give a quote from the 13th Doctor when that kind of just can talk about the healing process. Right now, I'm a stranger to myself. There are echoes of who I was and a sort of call to who I am. I must hold my nerve and trust these new instincts. Thank you.